Hi, I'm Michelle Ray, and this is my little project to try and improve my lack of confidence in me. I'm going to try not to fail. I write, and am not limited to, gay romance. I started writing in 2008 stories to my son, actually, one story to my son. He was a huge Hot Wheels Accelerators fan, and when the movies stopped abruptly, there was no ending, and so I wrote my son an ending to the movies in a Choose Your Own Challenge book, which I have right here. And I wrote and printed this for him, and he loves it. We read it for months and months after I had written it for him, and he still reads it today. He just loved reading it, and it gave me a really amazing sense of achievement to have been able to have written it for him. From there, I went and wrote a romance story, and again, just being able to write really helped me to get a grip on my life. In 2008, I was struggling with depression, I had anxiety, and trying to raise a young family was a real effort. And to be able to write was an outlet that saved me. After writing my story for my son, I published it on fanfiction.com, and the community that I was involved in loved it. It just gave us closure for that series. After I wrote my first romance, I moved over to Fiction Press and I published there. At some point in 2008, I saw within the titles of some stories slash, which I originally assumed meant horror. But eventually the descriptions caught my attention, and I went ahead and I read a story. And I've added a link to that story below if you want to see this first story that I read, which I was captivated by and really led to my obsession with writing LBGT fiction. In no time, I began looking for stories to read. And unfortunately, a large number of them were always incomplete, which can be really frustrating for a reader. And then eventually I began to notice that a lot of the gay romance that I was reading predominantly had elements of abuse or rape, abandonment, and I really felt that it was a misinterpretation of a genre. And I really felt that there needed to be uplifting stories, just really nice, fluffy romance stories. And I didn't feel that there was enough of them out there. So, as a writer, I decided I would write my own. And that's exactly what I did. The first story I wrote was Cat Got Your Tongue. And by the end of 2008, I had started publishing it on Fiction Press. Unfortunately, my poor writing skills meant that the story didn't do very well at all. And it didn't receive a good lot of feedback from it either. So eventually it came down. But I didn't stop writing. I continued to write. And eventually I would move from Fiction Press to Wattpad. And there I gained a lot of success as an LBGT writer. Perhaps not as much success as some, but still, for me, it was a lot of success. And I wrote on Wattpad for a number of years, just freely putting my stories out there, and slowly as my skill as a writer improved, I began to edit my stories and improve my stories. And it's like they say, hard work pays off. Last year in 2014, I had my story Time for Destiny picked up by Dream Spinner Press, and that was an amazing feeling. And to experience publishing from a publisher's side was great. It gave me confidence, but still not enough confidence to do it again. In 2015, I've recently published or self-published myself 2 books, Cat Got Your Tongue, which was the first one I ever wrote, and Divine Intervention. How well they're going to go doing it by myself, I have no idea. I would like to submit them to publishers. I think the fear of rejection stops me from doing it. The fact that I'd even submitted to Dream Spinner Press, I never believed that they would take my story. I never believed that it would be picked up, but it was. Mind you, it went through a huge rewrite, and I found that challenging but rewarding at the same time. One of my biggest fears as an LBGT writer is not so much the criticism I will get because of the stories I write, but my fear is actually asking other people to help promote my books. If you're a LBGT writer, you're not picked up by the top 10 publishers. Your publishers that you're going to be submitting to are indie publishers, and they do an amazing job to promote and support writers such as myself. But it's the fact that you then have to work hard at promoting and getting your story out there when the channels are so narrow and your audience may find it difficult to find your stories. Thankfully, Amazon and other sites like that have LBGT categories. It makes it easier for readers to find those stories, but actually being picked up and seen within those categories is hard work. And I find that's where I fall down as a writer, in that I love to write, but I'm not confident or strong enough to promote myself as a writer. So the reason for these videos is that, my family don't think I'm crazy when I'm talking to myself. I should just talk to the camera about my fears and maybe share them, and perhaps other writers might have the same fears as me. Who knows? We'll see what happens. We'll see how I go.